Psychic Matters with Théato, the top-ranked spirituality podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 115 of the Psychic Matters podcast. And today's episode came from a question that I've been asked several times over the past few years while I've been studying. And the question is this: what is perception and control in mediumship? Well, when I was first asked this question, my heart just sank. I had absolutely no idea, because questions like this just make my head swim and I get really overwhelmed with a question and I can't possibly come up with an answer. Then I start to panic. So I thought what I'll do is I'll make and create a podcast episode for you, for anyone who is studying mediumship and is unsure of the answer, and for those of you who are not studying mediumship but would really like to understand the mechanics of it a little better. So I'm going to answer this question in short, and then I'm going to go into more detail. There are many different types of mediumship. You've got physical mediumship, trance mediumship, healing mediumship, shamanic mediumship, past life mediumship, lots of different kinds of mediumship. But the one that you will probably be most familiar with is mental mediumship. And this is the type of mediumship that's demonstrated from the platform during the clairvoyance section of a divine service in a spiritualist church. And mental mediumship is the type of mediumship you might see when mediums are working on the television. Mental mediumship uses the psychic senses of clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, clairolfaction, claircognizance, clair. Again, the clairs used to drive me insane as well. I never knew which one pertained to which sense. So really, if you're listening to this, you really don't have to worry about your clair senses. All you need to know is that we have psychic senses, the very same as our physical senses. So we can smell in the mind's eye, we can hear in the mind's eye. But just to be clear and to give you a clarification of what each clair sense is, I'll go through them. So you've got clairvoyance, and that means clear seeing. So clear vision. So it's when we see images or symbols in the mind's eye, that is our clairvoyance. Clairaudience means clear hearing. So when we can clearly hear words from the spirit communicator, we can clearly hear speech spoken in our mind's ear, mind's eye, whichever you like to say. Clairsentience means clear feeling. So when we can tap into the feelings that spirit gives us, we can put our hand down here on our tummy, on our gut, and we can feel what is it they're making me feel. Therefore, what is it they want to express through this clairsentience, this clear feeling. Then you've got clairgustance, which means clear tasting. Because when you're working as a medium, you can sometimes taste things. You can taste a metallic taste, or you can taste salt. That I know I've done mediumship demonstrations where I know that I'm standing by the ocean because I can taste it in the air, that lovely blown spume of the ocean. So we can taste things that spirit impresses upon us. So clairgustance is clear tasting. Then you've got clairolfaction, which means clear smelling, and we can smell things that spirit impresses upon us: cigarette smoke, or frying bacon, or lovely Sunday roast, or lovely certain perfumes, certain aftershaves belonging to the spirit communicator. And then you've got claircognizance, which means clear knowing, when we just know something is true, which has been influenced in our mental mind by our spirit communicator. Now, mental mediumship can be divided into two categories: perception and control. And perception is when the medium perceives information through these psychic senses and gathers information from the spirit world, from the spirit communicator, and we relay it to the sitter in front of us. Control is where the medium allows the mind of the spirit person to control them for the purposes of passing on these messages. So it might be a message about healing or speaking or writing or drawing or painting, but we allow the spirit communicator to control us to a greater or lesser extent. And mental mediumship relies on the interaction of perception and control to channel those messages from a spirit communicator through the mind of the medium. And though they are very distinct, perception and control are interconnected, and they both influence the mechanics of mediumship in some very profound ways. Now, I've got a lot to say about this topic, so strap yourselves in, as they say, and here we go. The mental phenomena can give extremely good evidence of survival, but not in a tangible way. The medium's process, when we're working with our mental mediumship, is internal. It can't be seen by those who are watching us demonstrate mediumship. It's an internal process. Perception refers to the medium's innate ability to receive spiritual information, be it in the form of images, impressions, messages from the spirit world, and this perception encompasses our various psychic senses, which I've just listed out for you, and it includes clairvoyance, and this grants the medium the capacity to clearly see spirit. Clairaudience, of course, endows us with the ability to hear spirit. Our clairsentience, our clear feeling, allows us to feel the presence of spirit standing with us. And beyond these senses, mediums may also experience communication, as I've already said, through taste and smell and just our intuitive knowing. This means that during the perception phase of mediumship, mediums are primarily in a very receptive state. We have to be. We have to be open and ready to receive the information that the spirit communicator drops into our mind. So we focus on receiving information from the spirit world without trying to influence or control what it is we receive or when we receive it. So in this phase, the medium is not actively trying to direct that flow of messages, but instead we remain open and we allow that information to come through naturally. So it often results in us as the medium experiencing images and feelings and sounds and tastes or other forms of intuitive input in a very unforced manner, which lets the spirit communicator freely communicate with us without hindrance and without us forcing anything. So essentially, it's about a medium being an open channel, allowing the information to come through without trying to control it. Now, every medium experiences perception in their own unique way, because we all have very different ways of sensing and interpreting information from the physical world and also from the spirit world. It's very, very personal to us because our perception, how we perceive the world, is shaped by our experiences, by our emotions and our natural psychic ability. So it makes it very, very unique to you, completely unique. Your strengths will vary. Some mediums are naturally more visual, more clairvoyant, while others maybe feel spirit energy more strongly. They're more clairsentient. And your dominant ability plays a big role in how you receive messages. When I first started out down this road when I was 17 and got my first packet of tarot cards, I was extremely clairvoyant. I could see clearly imagery in my mind. And because I worked with tarot I still work for them. That's a long, long time, isn't it? I'm 60 now. So that's a long, long time to be working with my clairvoyance. And I've had to refine my ability and stop relying so much on my clairvoyance and try to bring up and make stronger some of my other clair senses. So I'm working very strongly on my clairsentience at the moment, and it just follows that my claircognizance, my clear knowing, falls into place once I've got my clairsentience rooted down. So our interpretation really matters. The way that we process and understand what comes through from the spirit communicator depends on our training, it depends on our experience, and it depends on our personal connection to spirit. As I've explained just now, you can refine your mediumship. So that's the good news. Your clairs are not set in stone. So with practice and with the right techniques, you can strengthen and you can balance out your clair senses. So maybe you're very strong in one area, you want to be stronger in another. You can strengthen each of these senses and balance out your abilities, which makes your connection to spirit even clearer and much more precise. So I've really worked hard, as I've said, on not relying so much on my clairsentience, I do rely on my clairsentience, not relying so much on my clairvoyance, my clear vision, because you can pick up so much more information in a much more three-dimensional way if you are able to work with all of your senses, just as we can in the physical world. If we can see, hear, smell, taste and feel as we walk down the road, then the world is, we're we are stimulated in multiple ways by the world around us, and we can do the same with our mediumship, with our clair senses, with our psychic senses there. So developing discernment is essential in both the perception and the control phases of mediumship. As I receive information from the spirit world, I need to be able to tell the difference between genuine messages from spirit and anything that might be coming from my own mind, that my conscious mind is interfering with and just bringing in and suggesting that that's coming from the spirit world when it's not. So whether that's a personal impression or an assumption or wishful thinking, I must be able, as a educated and trained medium, to be able to discern what comes from my conscious mind and what is coming directly from the spirit world. And the more I refine my skills, the more accurate my messages become, as will yours. The more that you refine your skills, the more accurate your messages will become. And over time, you are able to know clearly whether this is coming from your mind or whether this is coming from the spirit world. Through training, you understand the difference. It feels very, very different. You know it very clearly. So you therefore cannot possibly put words into the mouth of the spirit communicator if they haven't actually said those things or felt those things or tried to express those things. Discernment is crucial in the control phase, where I have to recognize what's truly coming from spirit, as I say, versus what might be my own thoughts. So with continuous practice and training and experience, I can sharpen my ability to separate those subtle, and it's always very, very subtle, intuitive messages from anything influenced by my own expectations or external factors. And the better I get at that, the stronger and more reliable my mediumship becomes, as will yours. So this perceptive phase serves when we are perceiving things, feeling things, knowing things. It serves as a foundation, and it enables mediums to gain insight into the thoughts and emotions or experiences of the spirit communicator. And it facilitates the initial communication with the spirit realm. In contrast, control represents the medium's active involvement in managing and interpreting the information received during the perception phase. So I'm talking about it in phases, as if this happens and then that happens. It's not quite like that. It's all so subtle. It all sort of happens at the same time. But if I speak about it in two phases, perhaps it makes it clearer for you and helps you understand it perhaps a little better. In mediumship, then, control is a very key concept, especially in trance communication. But what does control really mean, and how does a spirit communicator use control? Well, let me explain. Control in mediumship refers to the way a spirit communicator blends with and influences a medium, allowing that information to be relayed from the spirit world. In trance mediumship, this control varies. It varies in depth, from very, very light influence, where the medium remains aware and very conscious of the world around them, to very, very deep trance states, where the medium's consciousness is almost completely overtaken. So, how does a spirit communicator take control? Well, first, there is the blending of energies. That's always the very, very beginning of any mediumship connection. The spirit communicator will attune itself, himself, herself, their self, to the medium's auric field, and they will sync with their vibrational frequency to create a strong, clear link. And that blending of the energy of spirit and the energy of us and our auric field, that blending is the foundation of all controlled communication. So we raise our vibration. Everything is energy. We're all energy. I'm energy. You're energy. This microphone is energy. And I raise my energy. I raise my frequency. I raise, therefore, the vibration of me. And the spirit world lower their vibration, they lower their frequency, so that the two can be attuned together. And it's when you've got that beautiful attunement and you're working in what we call in the power, we're in the power of our own energy, the spirit world are in the power of theirs, and we meet in the middle thus, then the information can flow backwards and forwards in the most beautiful way between the two worlds. If we allow our conscious mind to interfere with that process, we can drop out of our power. If we start, for instance, to question what it is that we're saying, or allow the conscious mind to come in thinking, oh, did they really give me the reference of a breakdown in my car, or is it because that's just happened to me today? And when we start to doubt and we start to allow our conscious mind to come in and do some thinking alongside our mediumship, then that's when we can drop out of the power, and that connection to the spirit world gets not broken or fractured, but the connection drops, basically. And so then we have to pick up the vibration again. We have to pick up that connection again in order to make that information flow. So that's the blending of energies where spirit will attune itself to us. And next we've got mental impression and thought control. So in lighter trance states, such as mental mediumship, the spirit communicator impresses their thoughts, their ideas, their emotions upon the medium's subconscious. And the medium may experience these as an internal voice, which is very distinct from their usual voice inside, their usual mind process. Then we've got motor and speech control, which we see in deeper trance states. So here, the spirit communicator can take partial or full control of the medium's vocal cords. They can take control of our breathing and even our hand gestures, our mannerisms, etc. So this manifests in trance speaking, where the medium's voice, their cadence, sometimes their accent or their dialect will shift to reflect, or better reflect, the communicator's voice. Now, in trance writing, the medium's hand is guided to produce what we call automatic writing, and often it can be surprisingly fluent. And some mediums also experience controlled gestures such as healing movements or artistic expressions, this sort of thing. And at a deeper level, we see alteration of consciousness. The medium's awareness moves into the background, and it makes space for the communicator to step forward and speak. The medium might retain a sense of the spirit presence, but feel compelled to speak or act in ways that are beyond their usual self. And in deep, deep trance, then the medium may have no recollection of what was spoken or what was said in that session. And finally, there's the process of maintaining control. So control is not forced. It's always a collaboration between the medium and the spirit world. It's a beautiful, beautiful collaboration. And a skilled medium will learn how to allow the spirit communicator to control them to a certain degree while retaining a sense of their boundaries, and they will ensure that there is a clear and refined communication moving through them. When that connection is complete and the spirit communicator has said what it is they wanted to say, then the spirit communicator will withdraw and the medium will regain full consciousness and full awareness. So understanding control in trance mediumship is really essential for mediums and for sitters, for people who go to a trance medium, because it helps us recognize the mechanics of the communication process and appreciate the skill involved in refining and developing our ability to move into trance mediumship. It is really a miracle, an absolute miracle. It's beautiful. Control is also very evident in automatic writing, which is sometimes called controlled writing. And in the form of spirit communication, the communicator takes control of the medium's hand and will guide it to write words or phrases or even entire passages without the medium's conscious interference. And this degree of control can vary. So some mediums might remain lightly aware of the words forming on the page, while others may enter a very deep trance and emerge afterwards with very little recollection of what has been written. Automatic writing can be fluid, it can be effortless, and it often carries language or insights or even handwriting styles that are very distinct from the medium's own handwriting style. And it is a fascinating demonstration of spirit control, offering very direct and very tangible evidence of the external influence of the spirit world at work. Now, a related but very distinct form of spirit-inspired writing is called channeled writing, and it's not like automatic writing where the medium's hand is directly controlled by spirit. Channeled writing involves a more conscious collaboration. The medium remains very aware, but they receive inspiration and guidance or maybe direct phrasing from a spirit communicator. So the thoughts flow into the medium's mind, often arriving with real clarity and real speed that can surpass our normal writing process. And channeled writing allows for a deeper engagement with the information being received. It often produces very profound spiritual teachings, very profound philosophical insights, or maybe just messages of guidance from the spirit world. One distinction between trance writing and channeled writing lies in the source of communication. So in trance writing, the control is usually exerted by a single spirit communicator, often referred to as a messenger, who takes charge of the medium's hand or speech. And in contrast, channeled writing can involve multiple spirit beings, sometimes working collectively to inspire the medium. So we work with a hive mind, if you like, of the spirit world. And these messengers may work in harmony together to convey their higher teachings or universal wisdom, and they blend their energies to produce this seamless flow of guidance. So this difference highlights the various different levels of spirit influence, from the direct control of an individual communicator to the inspired collaboration of multiple voices from the spirit realm. If you are curious about seeing examples of automatic writing firsthand, many spiritualist colleges and museums and archives have got collections of writings produced during trance states by historical mediums. And these pieces often offer a fascinating look at the phenomena with handwriting or styles that are distinctly different from the medium's own. Quite often you'll have a little explanation in a museum or a display cabinet which will say how much time it took to write the message, and sometimes there are long pieces of writing that have been written in seconds from the spirit world through the medium. Absolutely fascinating. So for those of you that are interested, I do recommend checking out institutions like the London College of Psychic Studies, who have got some wonderful pieces of automatic writing, channeled writing, inspired writing on display, or other spiritualist museums where you may have a chance to view some of these remarkable examples in person. But if you directly contact them for information, they will be having exhibitions throughout the year, or maybe they have available archives that you can go and check out. And I'm sure places like the British Library will have all of these types of things in their archives that everybody anywhere in the world can sign up to go and have a look at. So understanding control in trance mediumship is essential, as I've said, for both mediums and for sitters, because it helps us recognise the mechanics of that communication process. And there's sheer amount of skill involved in refining and developing our abilities to do this as mediums. Now, in older traditions of mediumship, spiritual guides were often referred to as gatekeepers, because they were believed to control and regulate which spirits could come through in communication. The idea was that these guides would act as intermediaries, filtering the connection between the medium and the spirit world. However, in modern mediumship, we no longer rely on a gatekeeper in the same way. Instead, we work, and you've probably seen this on the television, certainly, possibly in spiritualist churches or spiritualist centres if you've been to such places, that we work directly with the spirit communicator themselves, and that allows for a much more immediate and personal connection to spirit. So while guides may still offer support from the background, the focus in modern day mediumship is on direct, unfiltered communication with a spirit who wishes to connect, and that ensures clear and authentic exchanges of information. Now, you may have heard of an incredible seer called Edgar Cayce. He was called or known as the Sleeping Prophet, and he lived from 1877 to 1945. He had an extraordinary ability to enter a deep trance state. He was able to access information in that trance state, which profoundly helped those who sought his guidance. Edgar Cayce practiced a form of controlled mediumship where he would enter a trance, allow his spirit helpers to influence his mind, and relay highly specific information in response to questions. And he is one of the most documented psychics of the 20th century and conducted over 14,306 readings, each one celebrated for its remarkable accuracy. Now, what made Cayce's mediumship so powerful was his ability to set his conscious mind to one side and fully attune to the minds of his spirit communicators. That level of receptivity is something that all of us mediums are working to develop. Throughout both the perception and control phases of mediumship, there is a heightened sensitivity and openness to subtle energies and impressions from the spirit world. Whether you're receiving mental impressions or you're allowing a spirit to work more directly through you, the medium's ability to surrender and trust plays a really pivotal role in the clarity of the communication that we receive. Trust and surrender, therefore, are the heart of both perception and control. A medium must have confidence in the information they receive and allow messages to flow naturally without overanalyzing or doubting the process. But of course, that doesn't happen overnight, does it? It takes continuous practice and continuous dedication. So sitting in the power of your own soul, sitting in the power of the divine presence of all things, meditation, studying, spiritual development, they're all essential to refine our mediumistic abilities. And at the same time, we've got to maintain a balance between surrender and self-awareness. As a medium, I have to allow the spirit world to work through me, but I also need to stay grounded and centered in my own energy. This is nothing about being protected from negative forces, because all spirit communication comes through with love and compassion. But rather it's about ensuring I don't become mentally, emotionally or physically depleted when I'm working. So by setting clear boundaries and working in the power, I can keep my mediumship strong and effective, and that allows me to work at my best without feeling drained. So this balance enables me to serve both the spirit world and those seeking messages from a spirit communicator in a way that is both very effective and really, really fulfilling. Perception and control can also involve altered states of consciousness. In the perception phase, mediums may experience an expanded state of awareness which heightens their ability to receive information. In the control phase, they may enter a deeper trance state, allowing the spirit communicator more direct access to their physical faculties such as speech. And in both cases, trust, surrender and cooperation create a very powerful partnership between the medium and the communicating spirit, and that ensures that the messages delivered are as clear and as impactful as possible. In the perception phase, I draw upon my established connection with the spirit world, working to interpret and convey messages with clarity and accuracy, and that requires a very deep rapport with the spirit communicator and an ability to translate their impressions into meaningful evidence and guidance. I think it's important that I just put in here that we can never provide evidence. That's not what we provide. We actually provide information. That's all we can provide. We can provide information which we give to the sitter, and it's up to them to decide whether or not that is evidential for them. So I think we have to be very, very clear about that. But in the control phase, when a spirit takes greater influence over an entranced medium's mind, the communication is still shaped by that medium's personal memory, their cultural background, their vocabulary. So a spirit communicator can really only work with the knowledge and the language and the frames of reference that are already within the medium's mind. So this means that if a spirit wishes to convey something beyond the medium's own experience or understanding, the message may not come through exactly as intended. Now, I can give you an example of this. Once upon a time, I was doing a reading for some Nigerian ladies, and I said to them, I'm standing in a street, and I know this is not the United Kingdom because the buildings are very, very tall. And as I look up and down the street, I could hear taxi noises behind me and lots of traffic. And as I looked in my mind's eye behind me, I knew that there were yellow cars on the street. Therefore, I knew I was in New York. And I said, I'm standing facing a shop. And as I face this shop, I know that written above this store is Macy's. And I know that's a store in America. But Macy's is not written right. There's something strange here and I was working with a lady in the spirit world. She stands me here, and I don't understand why she stands me in front of this shop, and she gives me the name Macy, but it's not Macy, it's at Macy. I'm not sure what it is. And they all gasped, and they said, oh my goodness, the lady that you're working with in the spirit world is called Yamasti. Now, Yamasti is not in my frame of reference as a name, because I'm a white lady from the United Kingdom. And I don't have those kind of names in my reference book of names. I've never come across a name called Yamasti before. So the spirit world, when they were working with me and influencing my mental mind, they gave me the nearest thing they could using my frames of reference to try to get that name across to these beautiful Nigerian women whom I was working with. So Macy's store, where I knew it wasn't quite Macy, I could get the rhythm, Amasi, and they were saying her name was Yamasti. So very, very interesting, and that's why I always feel that mediumship is such a beautiful, beautiful, miraculous, wonderful thing, which we're only just scratching the surface of, to be honest. But validation and verification are essential in perception and control. So when working in perception, I strive to deliver specific details, names and dates and personal memories so that the recipient can recognize and confirm that they understand who it is I'm connecting with in the spirit world. In control, evidential information may also be given, but in addition to factual details, the spirit communicator might express themselves through unique speech patterns, body language, mannerisms that reflect their personality. And these validations can reassure the recipient that the connection is genuine. So sometimes if I'm working with the spirit world, I know I can't quite get my words out. I know I can't, even as I'm speaking, I'm tripping over my own tongue. And I know, therefore, that the gentleman or lady in the spirit world would have had some sort of speech impediment or had a difficulty speaking. So it's things like this that they can influence. Perception and control can be refined through practice and training and through working, quite frankly. My perception and control has certainly improved over the years where I've been working, and developing your perception involves honing your ability to receive and interpret your spirit messages with increasing accuracy. During a mediumship sitting or a demonstration, I may shift very fluidly between perception and control. And at times I passively receive information from the spirit world. And other times I surrender more fully to allow the spirit world to influence the way a message is delivered through my voice or through my body. And that adaptability as a medium allows me to meet the needs of the communicator and ensure that their message reaches the recipient in the clearest way possible, in the way that they want it to be delivered. So personal development will play a huge role in your ability to work with perception and control. It certainly played a huge role in my ability to work with both of those faculties. And then as I grow spiritually and psychologically, my connection to the spirit world deepens and my intuition sharpens. And this ongoing journey often involves addressing personal blockages, healing emotional wounds that I carry, and also, of course, strengthening my spiritual awareness. So with each step forward, as I go forward in my training, I become better equipped to navigate that delicate balance between surrendering to spirit and maintaining my own sense of self. And that balance allows me to work with much greater clarity, better confidence, more authenticity in my communication with the spirit world. So although perception and control represent very different aspects of mediumship, they do share several key elements that underpin effective communication with the spirit world, because both require heightened sensitivity, heightened receptivity, and the ability to enter altered states of consciousness, and an ongoing willingness to develop through training and practice. So it's just an ongoing learning process once you go down this path. Trust and cooperation, of course, are also essential, which allow us as a medium to receive and deliver messages with accuracy and understanding. And all of these elements are vital, regardless of whether I'm perceiving information or whether I'm allowing a spirit to control my faculties. So a proficient medium knows how to balance and use both perception and control effectively, navigating the spirit world with skill. And in doing so, we are able to convey messages, offer comfort, provide guidance and understanding to those seeking solace or perhaps enlightenment. Ethics is a crucial element, of course, in both perception and control during mediumship. So when I'm perceiving information, it's essential to ensure that what I'm receiving is clear and free from my own emotions, my own bias, or my own desires. And that becomes even more important during the control phase, where I must ensure that the Spirit's message is communicated honestly, with integrity and with respect. And I never force a message or manipulate the process, whether I'm in a receptive or a controlled state. Having clear ethical guidelines in place is key to protecting both me and the sitter, ensuring that the messages that I receive and deliver are respectful and accurate and supportive. Mediumship should always enable, not disable. I think that's something to really always bear in mind. So I spoke about controlling mediumship being partial or full. So let's just have a look at that and see what that means. In mediumship, partial and full control refer to the different levels of influence that spirit communicators can have over a medium's faculties during a spirit communication. So those terms describe how much control the medium allows the spirit to exert over their physical body or their vocal cords to convey messages or perform physical phenomena, and that directly impacts the clarity of the messages transmitted from the spirit realm. Partial control occurs when a spirit communicator influences certain aspects of the medium's faculties, while the medium retains some level of awareness. So that's just partial control. The medium will remain aware of the impressions and the messages coming from spirit, but their thoughts, emotions, and sensations might be subtly altered. So, for example, a medium might feel a sudden surge of emotion like sadness or joy that they don't recognize as their own, but are the emotions of the spirit who is communicating. They might also notice changes in their body, such as a sudden tightening of the chest or a sensation of heat, which are signals from the spirit world. So it might be that the spirit communicator had a problem with the heart, or maybe suddenly you can't breathe as well as you could a few minutes ago. So it's the way that the spirit communicator will blend their thoughts with the thoughts of the medium. And this creates a very cooperative influence in the work. So sometimes that blending can make the messages more subjective and sometimes a little bit less clear. So let me give you, for instance, about that. If a medium receives a message that's unclear or just partially formed, because the blending of their own thoughts with the spirits is slightly off, or you're not quite in the power, they might interpret a spirit's gesture or image in a way that fits their own experience or understanding. And that increases then the chance of misinterpreting what the spirit communicator meant. And also the medium perhaps might interpret the message through their own emotional state, or their own cultural background, their own biases. So, for example, a medium might hear a specific word or phrase from spirit, but misinterpret it because they associate that word with a different meaning than the spirit intended. So, while awareness and training can help reduce miscommunication, the blending remains a bit of a challenge. I can give you another example of this. I was doing a mediumship reading for a client in America, and I was working with a gentleman in the spirit world who had a physical disability, and I couldn't quite work out what that physical disability was. I was trying to surrender to it so that I could confirm it to the recipient, and it might make it clear for him who I was communicating with. And the spirit communicator kept giving me what we call over here in the UK a pepperami, which is like a big long well, they're quite small now, they've shrunk in size, but a salami snack sausage. It's only about the width of your finger. And over in America, please forgive me, American people, but I think they might be called James something. But I was once upon a time watching a film called The Fundamentals of Caring, and one of the key phrases from the film was, it was a gentleman who was looking after a boy with cerebral palsy. And the gentleman who was looking after him would pull into a gas station and then pick up one of these snacks and would offer it to the guy with cerebral palsy and say, "A bite of the James." And it became a bit of a thing through this film. And I just remember that, "a bite of the James." And it was really funny. Now, that's in my frame of reference. Sorry, it is a little obscure. Bear with me. That's in my frame of reference. But when I was working with this man, this recipient in America, and I said to him, he keeps offering me a bite of the James, and I know this to be a snack. Is this something you're eating? Is this something that you like? I couldn't quite make the connection as to what it was. And at the end of the reading, the gentleman said to me, "Look, I could take so much of what you said. This was a friend of mine from school days, and he had cerebral palsy." And that's what the spirit communicator was trying to get me to understand. It was the cerebral palsy, not the bite of the James. So through my own frames of reference, which were slightly obscure, that message didn't quite come through as clearly as perhaps it could have done. So between me and the gentleman in spirit who was working with me, the guy with cerebral palsy, we didn't quite make it that day. But the gentleman, when I told him afterwards the reference and why I got that, he understood. So, you know, it is a challenge. It can very much be a challenge. But when we talk about full control, it happens when a spirit communicator completely takes over the medium's faculties. So that medium will enter a deeper trance state. They will suppress their subconscious so that the spirit can use the medium's body or their vocal cords directly. And when you're in this beautiful deep trance state, the medium mostly will have no memory or no awareness of the communication process or the physical phenomena that might be produced. So, for example, during a demonstration, a medium in full control might suddenly speak in a different voice or language that the medium doesn't recognize, while the spirit communicator is directly using that medium's vocal cords to speak. So the absence of the medium's consciousness allows the spirit to communicate more directly and often more clearly. Full control then can result in more coherent messages, which reduces the potential for personal bias or for interpretation through the mind of the medium. So, for instance, a medium in full control, they might relay a message that is much more direct, much more detailed. There's no influence from the medium's own thoughts. And that state will also enable the possibility of physical phenomena like materializations or direct voice, which may not be possible with just partial control. So an example of that might be a medium who, in full control, manifests a spirit's physical presence in the room, allowing the spirit to interact with the environment or the people present in ways that just couldn't happen if they were only in partial or under partial control. So it's important to note that the level of control can depend on the medium's intent and on the spirit communicator's influence. Some mediums may seek full control for unfiltered communication, while others may prefer partial control so that they can stay aware during the process. A medium's experience and ability to enter altered states also plays a role here. So more experienced mediums are often able to achieve full control and maintain a stable connection with the spirit world, whereas those in the early stages of development may find partial control a little bit more manageable for them in the stage of development that they are at. So, for example, A beginner medium might only be able to achieve partial control when they receive messages in much more subtle ways, like sensing emotion or seeing brief images, something like this. But as they grow in practice and comfort with the altered states, then they may begin to experience full control, where the spirit communicator can use their vocal cords or make a stronger physical connection, like moving objects or speaking in a different tone of voice. So that illustrates the flexibility and the skill involved in working with both partial and full control, and how each phase has its own unique characteristics depending on the medium's level of experience and the nature of that spirit communication. Trance mediumship involves the suspension of the medium's ordinary consciousness regarding their external surroundings, leading to a semi-conscious state where the medium has lost the ability to use their cognitive faculties. The spirit communicator controls the entranced medium, and they rely on that condition. They rely on the fact that the medium has lost the ability to use their cognitive faculties, because the spirit communicator needs to use them instead. So the spirit communicator can only use expressions that are already contained within the medium's memory. And again, the message may not be conveyed precisely as desired, potentially because it's been influenced by the medium's cultural background or references, as I've already said. So for the spirit communicator to effectively express their thoughts, it's essential that the medium is under complete control. So a greater degree of control results in a greater or more perfect, if you like, a more perfect expression of the message. So in the realm of mediumship, there are instances where mediums under full control can display knowledge or abilities that far exceed their own personal experiences or capabilities, and it's often seen when the medium acts as a direct conduit for a spirit communicator, which provides evidence of extraordinary spiritual influence. So a great example of this is a medium called Helen Hughes, who was around in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. And Helen Hughes was noted for her ability to speak fluently in French, despite having no prior knowledge of the language. So that remarkable demonstration of full control suggests that in these trance states, the medium's own consciousness takes a back seat, allows the spirit to express knowledge and skills beyond what the medium would normally possess. The idea of spirits communicating through a medium, sometimes revealing hidden knowledge, is also central to the famous case of Bridie Murphy, which has been described in a book called The Search for Bridie Murphy by Moray Bernstein. It's a fantastic book. I really highly recommend you buy it. In the 1950s, Moray Bernstein worked with a woman called Ruth Simmons, and Ruth Simmons was put under hypnosis by Bernstein, and she began to speak as though she were Bridie Murphy, who was a woman who had lived in Ireland in the 19th century. And Ruth's detailed accounts of Bridie's life, from her upbringing in Ireland to her experiences as an adult, were just astonishing, and especially considering Ruth had no previous knowledge of Irish culture or Irish history. And as Ruth spoke through the persona of Bridie Murphy, Bernstein was able to verify many of the details that Ruth provided, such as names and places and events that seemed to align with the historical records of a woman named Bridie Murphy from that part of Ireland at that time. So skeptics later on questioned the authenticity of Ruth's memories, suggesting that they could have been influenced by suggestion or imagination, but the case became one of the most well-known instances of past life regression, and it reignited public interest in the concept of reincarnation. So in the context of mediumship, that case I find really fascinating, because it mirrors, I think, or I certainly feel, it mirrors the extraordinary phenomena that we see when we work in full control with trance mediumship. And Ruth Simmons, much like Helen Hughes, seemed to step aside as the spirit of Bridie Murphy took over, communicating through Ruth in a way that was beyond her knowledge, beyond her capabilities. So the case of Bridie Murphy invites us really to question how much of our consciousness is truly our own and how much might be influenced by other worldly forces, whether that's the spirit world or the realm of past lives. In both of those examples, Helen Hughes and Ruth Simmons, we see the potential for extraordinary communication through full control. And these instances show us just how powerful and mysterious the spirit world can be, pushing the boundaries of what we know and challenging us to expand our understanding of mediumship and consciousness. Just as Helen Hughes provided evidence of the spirit world's vast knowledge by speaking a language she had no prior knowledge of, Ruth Simmons unlocked what might be seen as a past life, accessed through the deep state of trance that she was in. So those examples suggest that in moments of full control, the medium's conscious mind steps aside, allowing for the transmission of knowledge and wisdom and abilities that would otherwise be beyond their capacity. But these are not isolated cases, because in the broader history of spiritualism, we find numerous examples where full control can reveal astonishing insights and opens doors to realms of understanding that defy any logical explanation. And one of the most remarkable figures in the early development of spiritualism was Andrew Jackson Davis, and he was an American spiritualist whose work contributed significantly to the foundation of spiritualist philosophy. Andrew Jackson Davis was an uneducated man, and when he entered a trance state under what we would now call full control, he was able to deliver the most profound lectures on topics like philosophy or spirituality, the nature of the universe. And while he was in this trance state, he dictated a book called Harmonial Philosophy, which is a very comprehensive work that covered very complex spiritual and philosophical ideas in great detail. And for someone with no physical education, that was an extraordinary accomplishment. His ability to speak and write on topics like the interconnectedness of all life, the harmony between the material and spiritual worlds, and the nature of human consciousness, they were all seen as evidence of the vastness of the spiritual realm's influence. And this wasn't simply automatic writing or vague impressions. What Andrew Jackson Davis was channeling was sophisticated, organised knowledge that would impress even the most learned scholars. Much like Helen Hughes, who spoke French under full control, Andrew Jackson Davis demonstrated that when a medium surrenders fully to the spirit world, the spirit communicators can use the medium's faculties to share knowledge that far surpasses that medium's personal capabilities. This level of full control challenges our understanding of consciousness itself, and it does suggest that the medium's awareness is just merely a vessel, one that can access information and experiences beyond the constraints of personal memory, our own personal culture, or our own personal education. And what's fascinating, I find, about both of these examples is that they show us the potential for a deeper connection between the medium and the spirit world. So whether it's the speaking of a language that we've never learned in life, or the relaying of past life memories, or the delivery of advanced philosophical concepts, these phenomena demonstrate that the spirit world is not limited by the medium's own experience. Instead, it's a realm that can communicate profound truths, wisdom, and abilities that are often inaccessible in our everyday lives. And for us, as mediums and students of mediumship, this means understanding that when we enter states of full control, we have the potential to access realms of consciousness and knowledge that may seem far beyond our ordinary grasp. Now, in contrast, partial control is a more common phenomena in modern-day mediumship. So in the cases of partial control, the spirit communicator does not fully take over the medium's faculties, but instead the spirit influences certain aspects of the medium's abilities, while the medium retains some level of awareness and consciousness. This is often the case in contemporary mental mediumship demonstrations, whether live or online through platforms like Zoom. The medium's consciousness is not entirely overridden by the spirit, and they are still consciously aware of the impressions and the information being passed on. However, the communication may still be influenced by the spirit in a more subtle, cooperative way. And I recently experienced a demonstration that highlights this concept of partial control. During a mediumship session, a spirit communicator was working with me, and they had been deaf in this human lifetime, and they were partially controlling my hands. Now, I've got a knowledge of British Sign Language. I studied it to perhaps, what would we call it, an O-level in the UK, O-level of Sign Language. But through my hands, I was able to interpret the spirit sign for Christmas, which is this. And at the same time, the spirit communicated through my claircognizance, my clear knowing. They allowed me to receive the message that they had passed at Christmas. Now, what happened was, I knew that the woman that I was working with in the spirit world was deaf. I was able to say that. And what she was showing me, I kept doing, if you're listening on a listening platform, you won't be able to see this gesture, but do come over to YouTube, you'll be able to see me doing it. But I kept doing this. It's like she shows me a butterfly lands on the hand, a butterfly lands on the hand, and the recipient was saying, no, I've had no butterfly land on my hand. And I said, but the butterfly represents her in the spirit world. Oh, I said, oh, look, the butterfly keeps doing this. Oh, I know what this is. It's Christmas. This is the sign for Christmas. She passes at Christmas. That's what she was trying to tell me. So I was just making the sign for Christmas there. So really, really fascinating, that sort of partial control where they controlled my hands, knowing that's the intelligence of the spirit world, knowing that I knew British Sign Language. They were able to use that in my frame of reference for the recipient that I was working with. It was absolutely fabulous. And for me, it was very, very strong evidence of Spirit's presence and, of course, for the recipient, and how we can make these beautiful connections. So that instance of partial control provided such a clear example of how Spirit can influence our faculties without fully taking over our consciousness. And that just gives this beautiful collaborative and evidential exchange between the spirit world and the recipient. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about the importance of perception and control in mediumship, especially in a development circle. These two aspects are absolutely central to the process of becoming a confident and capable medium, and I've seen firsthand how essential it is to understand and balance both. Let's start with perception. In a development circle, you're learning to sharpen your senses to receive and interpret the subtle impressions that come through from the spirit world. And these impressions might come as intuitive insights, physical sensations, images perhaps in your mind, or fleeting thoughts. And at the beginning of your development journey, it's completely normal to question these perceptions. You might be wondering, is this my imagination, or is this truly coming from the spirit world? This doubt is a part of the process and something that you will work through with time. The key is learning to trust yourself and your impressions. In a development circle, the leader of that circle will guide you through exercises that enhance your sensitivity to the impressions that you receive. One common exercise is psychometry, where you pick up objects that belong to someone and receive impressions or messages from that object. And it's a great way to train your senses and build confidence in your abilities. You might also work with photographs, learning to read the energy and the messages that exude from them. And over time, as your trust in your own intuition grows, you'll begin to receive clearer messages, and you'll even start to connect with specific spirit communicators like guides or loved ones and relay much more personal information. Now let's talk about control. This is where things can get a little trickier, especially when you're first starting out. In a development circle, you're learning how to allow the spirit world to influence your energy without losing control of your own faculties. And there's a delicate balance there between surrender and your boundaries. And it's important to remember that as a medium, you are in control of your own mind and your own body. Spirit communicators may influence your thoughts or your feelings or even your actions, but you are never, ever, ever completely powerless at all. It's a collaborative exercise between you and the spirit communicator. So the exercises that you do in circle often start with grounding and centering, and that will help you prepare your energy to connect with spirit, and it also helps you stay firmly rooted in your own body and mind. So, for example, in automatic writing or inspirational speaking, you may allow a spirit communicator to blend with your energy and express their message through you. However, the goal is not to let go of all control, but to allow that spirit to work through you in a way that's clear and respectful of your boundaries. As you continue to develop, you may experience trance states where you're less aware of your conscious thoughts and more receptive to the spirit communicator, and that can feel a bit strange, especially for beginners, and it's completely normal to have concerns about losing control. But here's the thing: the more you practice, the more you learn to recognize when spirit is influencing you and when you need to take a step back to regain full control. So your circle leader will be there to guide you through that, helping you to feel safe and grounded while still allowing space for spirit communication. Another fascinating aspect of mediumship, especially in an advanced circle, is physical mediumship. So that involves spirit communication that is tangible and can be experienced by everybody else in the room. So that might include phenomena such as table tipping, where objects move in response to spirit energy, or direct voice communication, where the medium's vocal cords are used by the spirit to speak. It is an advanced skill, and it does require a controlled environment, often with the lights dimmed and a heightened focus on the atmosphere. So when you first experience those physical manifestations, it can be awe-inspiring and, let's be honest, a bit intimidating. But over time, as you become more experienced, you will learn to trust the process and to remain calm. And the key is to stay grounded and keep your mind clear, and remember that you are still in control of all of your faculties. Whether you're focusing on perception, control, or even physical mediumship, the process is about practice and patience. The more you work through your fears and doubts, the stronger your connection to the spirit world will become. The development circle is there to support you and help you to build confidence, refine your abilities, and remain safe in your mediumship practices. And ultimately, the role of the circle leader is crucial because they're there to ensure the space is safe, to provide guidance when you need it, and to help you learn how to maintain your boundaries while still allowing for authentic spirit communication. So it's all about trusting the process, staying grounded, and knowing that with time and practice, you'll become more attuned to the spirit world, better able to convey clear, meaningful, and evidential messages with integrity and confidence. And of course, if anybody is interested in joining a development circle, I have one that goes every Friday at between 7 p.m. UK time and 9 p.m. It's 2 hours every Friday. We do 6 weeks, and then we take a break for a couple of weeks, then we do another 6 weeks. So if you did want to join a development circle, please come and join mine, and you can find details on my website for that. So, as we conclude today's episode, it is important to remember that we stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us, those who have given us their knowledge and their wisdom. And it's thanks to them that we know quite a bit now about the spirit world. Yet, in the grand scheme of things, we do realise how little we truly understand. We are only scratching the surface of what is possible. The way we explain these experiences today may change in the future as our knowledge continues to grow. One concept that might help us better understand this process is morphic resonance, a theory which was introduced by biologist Rupert Sheldrake. Morphic resonance suggests that there is a kind of collective memory or field that stores information and patterns across time and space. The more something happens, the easier it becomes for it to happen again. This idea extends beyond individual experiences and includes groups, species, and even the collective knowledge of human consciousness. In the context of mediumship and spiritual exploration, morphic resonance suggests that the knowledge and experiences of those who have come before us may not only inform our own understanding, but also influence future generations of seekers, helping to build on the wisdom that has come before. As we continue to explore the spirit world, perhaps quantum science and concepts like morphic resonance will help us uncover new truths that align with both what we intuitively know and the deeper mysteries of the spirit world. Until then, we remain open to learning, to exploring, and to expanding our awareness, standing on the knowledge of the past while embracing the mysteries yet to be discovered. Our perception of the spirit world and the control we develop in mediumship will continue to evolve as we deepen our understanding. And as we unlock new layers of knowledge, we'll realize that the more we learn, the more we become aware of how much we still have yet to discover. My name is Théato, and thank you for listening to Psychic Matters.
You have been watching the Psychic Matters podcast with Théato, the only podcast to push forward the boundaries of human consciousness to redefine the significance of living. Subscribe now so you don't miss future episodes.